Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. So, Mr. Ibrahim Magu has perhaps opened what some people may call can of worms about what he is talking about, the forfeited assets. So let's get to the conversation now, everyone. I have Mr. Aliyu Lemu is a lawyer and a policy analyst. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Mr. Lemu, for joining us tonight. Perhaps you might be able to speak to some of the issues that have been raised in the reported letter from Mr. Magu's lawyer. We understand that Mr. Magu has reappeared before the presidential panel, and we also like to tell our viewers that we've spoken to the Office of the Attorney General and that of the Presidency about some of the allegations raised, which we've not really heard, gotten any response. Maybe because before the end of the program, we might get some response from them. But let me allow Mr. Lemu to weigh in. Give us an information about Mr. Magu's reappearance. When was he invited? And what are the allegations, or whether or not we now have an official allegations laid against before Mr. Magu?
Thank you very much, Sharon. Good evening, and thanks for having me on the program. Up until this moment, as I speak to you, Mr. Magu has not been officially given or supplied the allegation against him, either by the Attorney General of the Federation or any committee set up by the Presidency to investigate his activities, or any petition written by any individual alleging malpractices by him while in holding office as the chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. It seems to be an orchestrated and systemic plan designed to prejudice the mind of the public and the committee in carrying out its work. I wouldn't want to disclose confidential information of what is transpiring in the sittings of the committee, but up until this moment, Mr. Magu has only been asked general questions. He has not been directly confronted with any specific allegation.
But Mr. Lemu, we understand. Sorry to cut in, Mr. Lemu. We understand that Mr. Magu has reappeared before the Justice Salami panel. When was the invitation extended to him? And what has he been asked so far? Because it's few hours since he was said to have appeared before the panel.
Yes. Since he was released on bail last week, Mr. Magu has not been reinvited to appear before the committee. But as a law-abiding and dutiful citizen, every day he reports to the venue of the sitting of the committee from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. until today when he was called into the committee. But like I have said earlier, he has not been given a copy of any allegations against him. Rather, it seems to be an orchestrated media trial designed to poison the mind of the public toward Mr. Magu. There is no specific allegation as yet, but every day the media is feeding a frenzy of a certain narrative designed by individuals who want to tarnish the image of and hard-earned reputation of Mr. Magu. Mr. Magu's lawyers have written to the committee making complaints about these prejudicial publications. Up until this moment, the committee is yet to respond to the letter. In fact, the committee has refused to accept the letters written by Mr. Magu. But what I want to say is this. You see, every time somebody points a finger, 4 fingers point back at him. From certain disclosures being made by Mr. Magu today, at the end of the sitting of this committee, the whole country will be shaken to its foundation on the level of allegation, on the level of criminal activities being perpetrated by the accusers of Mr. Magu, who have orchestrated this whole grand design to discredit him before the public. The plan is simple. Mr. Magu is due for the submission for confirmation by the president sometime later this year. But the actors in this grand design, who are the beneficiaries and enablers of corruption, want to frustrate that attempt. And this is the script that is being played out by the media. The media has lent itself as a willing tool by enablers of corruption to spread
I like to cut in, And Mr. Lemu, I'd like to cut it and correct you. If you may pull back those words, because it is, I mean, I'm a member of the media, I'm a journalist, and when you use just a brush to paint everybody in the media, that they were enabling corruption, that is unfair. We are the ones who invited you to speak for Mr. Magu this evening. It won't be unfair for you to sit there at our own invitation and say to us on this program that the media with one brush and use it to paint everyone. That's unfair, isn't it?
Mr. Sheung, perhaps I take back some of that. But certain sections of the media, I wouldn't like to mention particular print media, but I'm sorry to paint the whole media with a certain tab brush. But certain section of the print media have lent themselves as willing tool. With all due respect, Mr. Sheung, the committee is set up to investigate these allegations. It's supposed to be still out and has not yet returned with a verdict. But the certain sections of the organized media, not social media cannot be monitored or regulated. But certain section of the organized media, especially the print medias, are the ones churning out untruths every day, unverified facts, unsubstantiated allegations, which have not been directly presented to Mr. Magu to refute.
Mr. Lemu, let me cut in, and quickly, if you can validate the allegations and some of the issues that are being raised in the letter that was said to have been transmitted to the Justice Ayosalami-led panel, which is titled Alleged Case of Conspiracy, Enrichment, Abuse of Public Office, and Other Infractions. In that letter, it was said that some vehicles recovered by the EFCC were auctioned to the Presidential Villa, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, as well as the Federal Inland Revenue Services. And in fact, some of these vehicles have not been paid for. Can you validate? Do you have document? Do you have evidence to support some of these claims made in the letter written by Mr. Magu's lawyer?
Very well, Mr. Sheung. All of these actions you speak to are not the personal actions or conduct of Mr. Magu, but the activities of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission as an institution headed by Mr. Magu. A lot of recoveries were made, monies, properties, and vehicles. It is an act of economic, should I say, wiseness for Mr. Magu, for the EFCC under Mr. Magu, to make a position to the government that government, we have certain vehicles which have been forfeited to the federal government based on the prosecutions or forfeiture orders made by courts. Instead of the huge amount of monies expended by the government every year to buy new vehicles, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has vehicles which it seeks presidential approval to allocate or either allocate or auction to certain agencies of government, so that instead of the government taking its hard-earned crude revenue and taxpayers' money to businessmen to buy cars outside, the vehicles are available and can be allocated at either a fraction of those prices or at no price at all to government parastatals. It's actually a stroke of economic genius.
So, Mr. Lemu, if you look at some of the issues raised against Mr. Magu, is the fact that he's unable to account for the interest accrued to the 550 billion recovered funds, as well as recovered vehicles and houses. In some of these issues, I remember that the former Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, raised the issue over the matter of these funds that are being forfeited, or the funds that are being recovered. But again, the Attorney General of the Federation is yet raising another matter. Is it coincidence that this is happening? And two ministers, one former, one present minister, is accusing Mr. Magu about this. Don't forget also that Mr. Magu's agency is being superintended by the Attorney General of the Federation.
Very well, Sheung. You see, these are part of the unsubstantiated allegations being churned out in some sections of the print media. You see, the truth of the matter is, since this government came into power, all government revenue and income are being paid directly into the Treasury single account of the federal government of Nigeria, domiciled with the CBN. The EFCC is no exception. All the revenues accruing from recovered or looted funds by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission are being lodged with the Central Bank of Nigeria. Being an account of the federal government, that money does not generate interest. Recall when this administration came in, it gave a policy directive that all funds be moved from commercial banks to the Central Bank of Nigeria. That being the case, everybody, every average person in Nigeria knows that the central bank is the banker's bank or the government's bank. It does not, the money kept to the CBN does not generate interest. That being the case, the issue of the funds recovered generating interest does not arise. That is one issue. On the second issue of the properties being recovered by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission under the stewardship of Mr. Magu, some of these properties in the past are being made to waste. But the economic masterstroke and ingenuity of Mr. Magu under his stewardship as the chairman of EFCC is to save government revenue by taking out hard-earned taxpayers' money and oil revenue to give to private individuals. Government is being saved money by giving these properties to agencies and parastatals of government to occupy either free or at subsidized rates. The issue of the Voice of Nigeria and other parastatals is something that's common for everybody to know. That is the second point. On the third point, that the figures stated by Mr. Magu being disputed by either the Minister of Finance or the Attorney General, all of these are available records. The right place to make this investigation, Mr. Shonsa, is not on the pages of the print or electronic media. The Minister of Finance has access to the record at the CBN. The Accountant General of the Federation, the Treasurer of the Accountant General of the Federation and the Auditor General of the Federation have the statutory mandates to investigate the proceeds recovered by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and establish with certainty, beyond any iota of doubt, that some funds have been missing.
All right.
Instead of the Minister of Finance,
we must leave it at that, Mr. Lemu. Yeah, we must leave it at that, Mr. Lemu. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Lemu, for your time tonight. Appreciate your time. Well.